Philippines may have abundant natural resources even before the encroachment of the Spaniards, but our ancestors were mainly involved in a subsistence economy. And while the payment of tribute or taxes, ito yung mga buwis natin or yung handog na tinatawag, or the obligation to provide labor services to the datus in some early Filipino communities in the Philippines may resemble taxation. It is essentially different from the contemporary meaning of the concept. Okay, so taxation in Spanish Philippines. So the arrival of the Spaniards disrupted the traditional subsistence economy in the Philippines by introducing the tributo system, modeled after Spanish colonies in the Americas. The tributo was intended to finance colonial administration, including government salaries and clergy expenses. However, the Spaniards faced difficulties in collecting tributes due to the scattered nature of Filipino communities. Hiwa-hiwalay kasi sila. So, to address this, they established pueblos or yung mga towns. Ito yung mga centralized settlements kung saan yung mga Filipinos were required to live and farm assigned lands. So this system facilitated, of course, yung kanilang revenue collection and control. And additionally, yung encomienda system ay inintroduce na nila, granting Spanish encomenderos the right to oversee the settlements in exchange for services rendered to the Spanish Crown. May mga individuals katulad ng principalias or mga local elites, mga government officials, mga military personnel, they were exempted from paying tributes. So itong sistema na to ay nag-generate ng resources, and it also entrenched social inequality and disrupt yung traditional socio-economic structure of the Filipino communities. Okay, so the arrival of the Spaniards required Filipinos who traditionally practice subsistence agriculture to adapt to a more intense system of production. So itong shift na to ay sanhi ng colonial demand for increased agricultural output to meet the tribute obligations kasi tumaas yung tributes nila. So they have to work harder para ma-meet yung mga obligations nila. Initially, itong tributes na to ay dating binabayaran in kind, such as yung mga agricultural produce nila. But over time, kalahati ng tribute had to be paid in cash. So this change forced Filipinos to increase production and participate in the colonial economy. The Spanish imposition disrupted traditional farming practices, as Filipinos were compelled to grow crops that were profitable for the colony rather than solely for their own consumption. This marked a transformation in the local economy, aligning it with the broader colonial system, while introducing monetary transactions and a cash crop system. Ultimately, the tribute system was a pivotal mechanism that linked agricultural production to colonial rule and intensified exploitation. Okay. Later, they introduced a variety of tax systems para maparami nila yung revenue or yung collection nila. The Chinese in particular were subjected to a higher tax or discriminatory cedula. So it is a larger tax than what Filipinos were paying. And by 1878, two additional direct taxes were implemented. So ito na nga yung urbana tax, levied on the annual rental value of urban properties. And then another one is the industria tax, which applied to salaries, yung mga dividends, mga profits. Okay. So, yung indirect taxes such as yung customs duties on imports and exports ay naging crucial during the 19th century economic growth. Additionally, the government derived income from state monopolies, including the sale of stamp papers, mga liquors, mga cockpit arenas, and of course yung opium. During the time ay legal pa ang opium. Okay, so however, the tobacco monopoly stood out as the most significant revenue source. Yung tobacco monopoly. Of course, it was monopolized by the Spanish government. And then yung forced labor or polos, which required Filipino males to work 40 days annually unless they paid a 3 peso fee. Ito yung tinatawag natin na falya para ma-exempt ka sa polo e-serbisyo. So by the late 19th century, forced labor was rebranded as prestasyon personal. Okay, so yung mga principales, they were given positions, of course, such as sila yung mga naging barangay captains or kabesa de barangay or mga mayor in the local government. They were able to enrich themselves kasi pinubulsan nila yung mga taxes at saka yung mga tributes, while the peasants were left to be abused. Taxation appeared progressive, but the disparity between the less taxed principales and heavily taxed peasants made the rich even more richer and the poor poorer, lalo tayong naghihirap. And then from 1898 to 1903, the Americans followed the Spanish system of taxation with some modifications, noting that the system introduced by the Spaniards from 1898 to 1903. Okay, so the Americans adapted and modified the Spanish system of taxation in the Philippines, recognizing the outdated, according to them, outdated route at regressive yung nature ng Spanish tax policies. Kaya nag-implement sila ng mga changes to modernize the system. The American military government suspended revenue sources like the opium trade contracts, yung mga lotto operations, yung mint charges for the coinage of money. And one significant modification was the replacement of the urbana tax with the real estate tax, now known as the land tax. So itong shift na to nag-reflect sa American intention na introduce yung mas equitable taxation by focusing on property ownership rather than urban rentals. So habang yung mga Americans, they retain some elements of the Spanish tax system, they also work toward streamlining revenue generation to align with their broader colonial policies and modern economic principles. Okay, so the Internal Revenue Law of 1904 ay ipinasa bilang reaksyon dun sa mga problema ng pagkukolek ng mga land taxes. It prescribed 10 major sources of revenue. Number one is license taxes on firms dealing in alcoholic beverages and of course tobacco. Two, yung excise taxes on alcoholic beverages and tobacco products. Pangatlo, yung mga taxes on bankers. Pang-apat, document stamp taxes. Ito yung documentary stamp natin na binabayaran. And then yung pang-lima ay yung sedula. Number 6 ay taxes on insurance companies. 7 ay taxes on forest products. 8 ay mining concessions. And then yung tax on business and manufacturing. And 10, occupational licenses. Okay, so during the American colonial period, the cedula system underwent significant changes. So the fixed rate per adult male caused a sharp decline in revenue, prompting some provinces noong 1907 to double the cedula fee. Dinoble nila yung halaga. Para daw mapondohan yung mga pagpapagawa ng mga karsada and of course mga maintenance. So the industrial tax imposed on businesses, it evolved into a complex system assigning taxes based on the profitability of specific industries or commercial activities. So kung nagpo-profit yung business mo, tataas ang iyong mga taxes. Okay, and then the Underwood-Simmons Tariff Act of 1913, it further impacted government revenue by abolishing export taxes on key products tulad ng asukal, ng tobacco, hemp, and of course yung copra, reducing income from trade. Para makompensate ito sa mga revenue losses, yung Internal Revenue Act of 1904 ay inintroduce. Ito yung taxes on mines, petroleum products, and dealers of tobacco and petroleum. So itong mga measures na to ay naka-aim para ma-modernize daw yung tax system while adjusting to the economic challenges and priorities of American administration in the Philippines. Okay, so going on, taxation during the Commonwealth period. During the Commonwealth period, new taxation measures were introduced to create a more equitable system. In 1936, income tax rates were increased and a surtax was applied to individual net incomes exceeding 10,000 pesos. Okay? So, ang tinatarget dito yung mga higher earners. Yung corporate income taxes were also raised. Tinaasan din nila, reflecting efforts to generate revenue from both individuals and yung mga businesses. In 1937, the cedula tax was abolished. Inabolish nila, which appeared to be a progressive step toward fairness. Pero noong 1940, yung resident tax was introduced pa. So parang nagpalit lang ng pangalan. Itong residence tax and require ang lahat ng citizen age 18 years and above, and of course lahat ng corporations to pay. So this measure replaced the cedula and aimed to broaden the tax base while maintaining government revenues. So these changes highlight the Commonwealth's attempts to modernize taxation while addressing economic inequalities and of course yung mga fiscal demands of governance. And in 1939, the Commonwealth government drafted the National Internal Revenue Code, introducing major changes of the new tax system, such as the following. Okay, number 1 dito ay yung normal tax of 3%, and the surtax on income was replaced by a single tax at a progressive rate. Number 2 is personal exemptions. They reduce it. And then yung corporate income tax was slightly increased by introducing taxes on inherited estates or gift donated in the name of dead persons. Okay, number 4, yung mga cumulative sales tax ay pinalitan ng isang turnover tax of 10% on luxuries. Okay, yung mga luxury items natin nagkaroon ng 10% taxes. And then of course yung liquors, yung cigarettes, yung mga lumbers, mga mining were increased also. And then dividend were made taxable. Yung mga dividends, mga shares sa mga companies ay may taxes na rin. So the introduced tax structure was an improvement of the earlier system introduced by the Americans, but it still remained inequitable. The lower class still felt the bulk of the burden of the taxation. Yung mga mahihirap pa rin ang nagdurusa, silang nag-shoulder ng mga taxes, while yung mga upper class or yung tinatawag natin na landed elite, yung mga mayayaman, malulungang lupain, and also yung mga people in political positions, namamanyobra nila yung sitwasyon na magbe-benefit them more. So the agricultural sector was still taxed low to promote growth, but there was no incentive for industrial investment to take root and develop. And finally, yung common character of taxation during the American occupation in the Philippines was that it was not used to diversify the economy or to direct economic development. It still carried this proportionate share of the tax burden. Okay, so foreign trade fell, and the main sources of taxation came from amusements, manufacturers, professions, and business licenses. It was during the World War II. So as the war rages, yung tax collection ay naging napakahirap. Kasi nga, nagtatago ang mga tao. And the additional incomes of the government were derived from the sales of the national sweepstakes and sale of government bonds. Gusto na ang sweepstakes ng mga panahon na yan. So, the expenditure of the Japanese military government grew greatly, and they issued the military notes in order to cover the cost of the war. Okay, and then fiscal policy from 1946 to present, so it was the post-war era. So the aftermath, yung aftermath ng World War II ay nagkaroon ng devastating and uneven impact doon sa ating Philippine economy. Bumagsak ang economy. So habang yung Manila ay nasira na, wasak, ay yung mga countryside ay remained relatively intact. And despite gaining independence from the United States noong 1946, the Philippines relied heavily on U.S. rehabilitation funds. So para tayong namamalimos sa U.S. So this economic dependency ay nag-create ito ng opportunity para sa U.S. to maintain influence over the newly independent nation. And by 1949, the Philippine government faced severe financial shortages affecting key sectors katulad ng military and education. And yung mga issue, doon sa mga compounding issue, dumadaming mga issue na to, kakaunti lang naman yung mga effort na ginawa para ma-improve yung tax collection. Although yung United States ay nire-recommend na mag-adapt ng direct taxation para ma-address yung mga fiscal challenges. So itong si President Manuel Rojas, ini-reject naman niya itong proposal na ito for political reasons, likely to avoid public backlash. And okay, the lack of robust, yung matatag na fiscal reforms at yung reliance natin sa mga tulong ng US, it highlighted the fragile state of the post-war Philippine economy at saka yung struggles to achieve full economic independence. Okay, so economic growth gained momentum under President Elpidio Quirino's administration. Medyo nakakabawi-bawi na tayo. It was driven by the implementation of import and exchange controls. So itong mga measures na to ay naka-aim para protektahan yung ating mga domestic industries at ma-stabilize yung ating economy. Alongside these controls, mga bagong tax measures were enacted, including increased corporate taxes, tinaasan na naman, which of course it significantly boosted government revenues. By 1953, yung mga tax revenues had doblado na compared to 1948, the year Quirino first assumed office. Yung mga sumunod na administrations katulad nung kay Ramon Magsaysay, kay Carlos B. Garcia at kay Diosdado Macapagal, they recognized the need for further tax reforms. So they pledged to review the tax structure and policies to address inefficiencies and inequities. In 1959, the Tax Commission was established under Republic Act number 2211 to study and recommend improvements to the Philippine taxation system. So these developments underscored a growing focus on the fiscal modernization to support economic development and governance reforms. So, yung post-war Philippine Republic ay naka-experience ng pagtaas sa corruption and it significantly impacted fiscal policies and of course yung economic growth. Between 1959 and 1968, 10 taon ito, yung Kongreso ay they failed to enact substantial tax legislation. Walang mga batas na bago for a span of 10 years. Pero despite these notable economic changes, so itong pagiging inactive ay nag-reflect ito sa mga interest ng Filipino businessmen doon sa Congress. Evident ito sa rejection ng mga proposals katulad ng mga import taxes. Yung indirect taxes, of course, it continued to dominate. Actually, 3/4 of the total revenue ay binubuo ng indirect taxes. Okay, yung Omnibus Tax Law noong 1969, nabigo din ito para mag-increase yung proportion of income tax within general tax revenue. At nagpapakita ito ng persistent imbalance doon sa taxation system natin. Okay, yung tax collection efficiency ay it remained poor. May mga problema, may mga issues na hindi na-resolve. And moreover, nagkaroon ng malawakang korupsyon, pagnanakaw sa pondo ng gobyerno, which drained public funds, leaving the government, of course, unable to finance development-oriented projects adequately. So itong period na to ay nagpapakita ng detrimental effects. Epekto ng mga corruption, ng mga inefficiencies doon sa country's capacity to achieve economic progress and of course improve or equitable taxation. Okay, so under Marcos authoritarian regime, yung tax natin ay parang it remained unresponsive. So, tumaas yung mga taxes natin at the rate ng 15% and generate of course a low tax yield. So the Philippine tax system ay naging regressive sa halip na progressive. At ito ay umaasa lamang doon sa mga indirect taxes which accounted for up to 70% of total tax revenues during 1981 hanggang 1985 ito. So itong reliance nato ay disproportionately burdened lower income groups, yung mga mahihirap na naman ang tinatamaan. Ano? Kasi nga yung indirect taxes ay less equitable ito kaysa doon sa direct taxes, katulad ng income tax tsaka yung mga property taxes natin. So the system failed to address, of course, yung economic disparities and provided limited fiscal support for inclusive growth. And following the EDSA revolution, nung panahon nato ni Cory, it prioritized tax reform para masolusyonan yung mga inequities at mga inefficiencies nung panahon ni Marcos. Yung 1986 tax reform program was a cornerstone of her administration. Ang aim nito ay para daw ma-modernize at ma-restructure yung ating tax system. So itong program nato ay pinalawak yung tax base natin at in-enhance yung progressivity. And of course, improve revenue collection efficiency. Laying the groundwork for a more equitable fiscal policy framework and helping the Philippines recover from the economic challenges of the Marcos era. Okay, so itong 1986 tax reform program nato ay naka-aim ito para ma-address yung mga kahinaan ng Philippine tax system by pursuing four key objectives. Number one is, of course, improving responsiveness. Yung mga reforms ay ang purpose nito ay para ma-align yung ating tax system doon sa mga pangangailangan ng ating economy, ensuring that tax policies supported growth and were adaptable ito to changing economic conditions. Number two is promoting equity. So ang goal nito ay para gawing fair or patas yung taxation by ensuring that yung mga individuals at saka yung mga firms in similar circumstances carried an equivalent tax burden. Pare-pareho, pantay-pantay dapat. Reducing inequalities in the system. Number three is encouraging growth. So it aim to eliminate or baguhin yung mga taxes na nagiging sanhi ng mababang productivity at of course mababang economic activity, thus fostering a more dynamic and growth-oriented economic environment. Number four is enhancing tax administration. So ito, sinimplify nila yung mga batas natin, ang mga tax flows natin at mga tax regulations. So itong reforma nato ay it was aimed to reduce yung mga administrative complexities, para magkaroon ng para ma-promote yung compliance, tax compliance, at mabawasan yung mga opportunities ng mga tax evasion. Maraming mga tax evaders kasi. So itong measure na to ay collectively sought to create a more efficient, equitable and growth-oriented tax framework for the Philippines. Okay, one of the significant reforms na inintroduce ni Cory ay yung adoption ng value-added tax. So, ito yung VAT system na pinagdudusahan natin hanggang sa ngayon. So sinimplify nito at it modernized the tax structure. So ano ba mga key features nitong VAT na to? So nagkaroon ng uniform 10% rate O ngayon 12% na ito eh. Nung una-una 10% lang. So in-apply ito doon sa sale ng mga domestic at imported goods and services. Yung export and foreign currency sales natin ay zero rated, encouraging international trade and foreign investment. So ayun, naging zero yung ating mga taxes sa mga export natin tsaka sa import natin para daw ma-encourage yung mga foreign investment mag-invest dito sa Pilipinas. Pangalawa, yung simplification nga ng tax system. So, yung VAT the VAT replaced various taxes katulad ng mga fixed taxes, mga advanced sales tax, original sales tax, subsequent sales tax, compensating tax, napakaraming mga taxes na pinalitan nitong VAT, Okay, so this, kumbaga sa pinagsama-sama na lahat yung mga taxes na yun. At isa na lang yung ating binabayaran. At ito na nga yung value added tax. So this consolidation streamline the taxation process and reduce administrative burdens. So yung introduction ng VAT was masasabi nating transformative ito, naka-aim ito at increasing efficiency, at napalawak nito yung ating tax base and enhancing revenue collection, of course. Kasi automatic ito, pag bumili ka ng isang item, ay magta-tax ka na agad. So hindi na kailangan pang magkaroon ng tax collection efforts ang government. So it actually foster economic growth through a more uniform and transparent tax structure. And then under President Fidel B. Ramos, naka-experience tayo ng greater political stability. Nawala yung mga kudeta na yan. Bakit nawala? Kasi nga si Ramos ay dating chief of staff ng Philippine Army. So yung mga sundalo ay nawala na yung mga coup dahil dati niyang mga kaalyado to eh, So nag-result ito sa sustained economic growth. Noong 1997, yung comprehensive tax reform program ay inilaunch niya bilang isang attempt para ma-modernize yung ating tax system. So it had two main objectives. Number one is broadening the tax base and simplifying the system. So it aimed to create a tax structure that was inclusive, straightforward, and featured mga reasonable tax rates. So by expanding the tax base, the government sought to ensure na yung ng maraming individuals at mga businesses will contribute to national revenue without imposing excessive burdens on any single group. Number two is minimizing tax avoidance. So parang na-reduce yung mga loopholes in existing laws na nagagamit ng mga tax evaders. So itong effort na to ay naka-aim at improving fairness and ensuring compliance. Okay? At ito yung nakapag-enhance ng efficiency ng tax collection ng government. So itong reform na to ay naging instrumental in strengthening fiscal policy and promoting a more equitable and growth-oriented economic environment during Ramos administration. Okay, and then nung maupo na si Erap Estrada, dahil maikli lang yung term of office niya, kasi nga na-impeach. So noong 1998, nagkaroon ng stability in tax policies pero wala namang mga reforms na na-implement. And then, nung maupo si Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, nagkaroon ng sobrang spending ang gobyerno. Sobra-sobra ang paggastos ni Arroyo. Wala namang naging adjustment sa mga tax collection. Kaya ito ay it lead to a significant fiscal deficit. At para ma-address daw itong financial shortfall na to ay yung tinatawag natin na expanded value added tax, dati VAT lang ito, naging expanded pa, ay inintroduce para ma-enact itong law as Republic Act number 90, what's that? Republic Act number 9337. Ito na nga yung EBAT. So anong mga aim nito? Para daw ma-broaden yung VAT base. In-expand yung coverage ng VAT. Isinama yung marami pang mga goods and services na dati-rati ay exempted sa VAT. So it increased the VAT rate, of course. The tax rate was raised from 10% to 12%. Ito na nga. Ngayon, as of now, 12% ito. So generating additional revenue, of course, for the government. And then yung pangatlo ay yung enhanced fiscal stability. So the measure sought to reduce the budget deficit by increasing government revenue. So itong EBAT na to ay controversial ito dahil ito ay naging potential burden do sa mga consumers. So but it was a critical step in addressing the country's fiscal challenges. Okay, so this EBAT is subjected into energy products, yung mga coal, mga petroleum products natin, and of course pati yung electricity generation, kasama yung transmission and distribution. So and of course yung mga selected professional services ay tinaksan na din. Noong February 2006, the VAT tax rate was also increased. Okay, so yun ang ginawang solusyon ni Arroyo para mapagtakpan yung sobrang paggastos niya ng government funds. Itong EVAT. And then nung maupo itong si President Benigno Aquino, so he emphasized generating additional revenue without introducing new taxes. Sa halip, it focused on adjusting existing taxes. Particularly, ito na nga ang sin tax. So, yun na nga. Na-invento na yung sin tax. Sin Tax Reform Act of 2012. So, itong sin tax ay tinatarget nito yung mga excise taxes doon sa alak, alcohol, sa cigarettes. At ito ay malaki ang na-contribute sa increase in government revenue. So, ano ba ang mga naging outcome ng sin tax reform? So, nagkaroon ng revenue growth, of course. And then, nagkaroon ng credit rating upgrade. So, the reform of bolstered fiscal stability, helping the Philippines achieve an investment grade credit rating, which attracted, of course, yung mga foreign investors natin. Yung pangatlo ay impact on social services. Okay, so yung revenue from the sin tax ay inallocate ito para ma-improve naman yung ating healthcare. So habang umiinom ng alak, naninigarilyo, ay magtatax ka ng malaki para naman ma-improve yung ating mga health centers. So it enabled increased funding for the Department of Health and financed free health insurance premiums. Nagkaroon na ng PhilHealth, di ba? Yun ang as of now nga, ito yung universal health. Kahit hindi ka nagbabayad, kapag mahirap ka, hindi ka nagbabayad ng dues, pero member ka na rin ng PhilHealth. So itong syntax reform na to ay exemplified how fiscal policy could advance economic goals while addressing social welfare. Okay, nung panahon naman ni Duterte, pinrioritize niya yung tax reform with a focus on easing the burden of income taxes for Filipino workers. Okay, so recognizing that the Philippines had the second highest income tax rates. No? Tayo yung pangalawa sa pinakamataas ang income tax dito sa Southeast Asia, and outdated tax laws, no? Drafted 2 decades prior yung mga tax laws natin. So kaya nagkaroon ng proposal para sa comprehensive reforms. Mga key components ng proposed tax reforms included: number 1 is lowering income tax rates. So ang aim nito para ma-reduce yung financial strain ng mga working class Filipinos. So it sought to boost this disposable income and improve overall economic well-being. And then pangalawa yung limiting VAT exemptions. So parang in-stream nila yung mga VAT policies by restricting exemptions, ensuring a more efficient and equitable tax collection process. Number 3 is increasing excise taxes. Dinagdagan nila yung excise tax, higher taxes on petroleum products, automobiles, were proposed to generate additional revenue again and promote environmental sustainability. So itong mga reforms na to ay nakadesign para mabuhay yung ating economy, ensuring that even the lowest income groups could feel the benefits of development while enhancing the country's fiscal capacity. Okay, so that ends our discussion on the evolution of taxation. So next meeting, be prepared for another quiz regarding this topic. Okay, so thank you very much and God bless.